Just the two of us. Let's go. Donttap podcast. We're back after, a pretty successful week from a standpoint of I was trying the first time of out these evolving lines and putting out lines that I'm pretty solidified in the early plays. I noticed even on some cappers podcasts, they were talking about, what's the best thing to do. There's some guys, even Billy was looking at in a lot of sports, you want to wait till the right before the event to really drop your lines. And for me, with MMA, man, you want to beat those lines. There's a couple lines that jump out immediately on the fight night from the prior week. If you finish watching the UFC card, you should be looking at the lines to see what's out there, or even prior to that, looking what's coming up in the oncoming weeks. I'm surprised the Pantoja line hasn't moved. I thought that might move a little bit, maybe a little bit later in the week that might move. So I jumped on that early right away at plus 170, but we'll get into those. Let's just look back quickly at the card that was, because I think we did a pretty successful job. And we can start with the fight right out of the gate. I believe was the Romanov fight, correct?
Yeah.
And although I sort of tailed off of my over later in the week, that was a line that we put out on Sunday. So it was minus 190. It was on the podcast. We were looking at the over, we were looking at the fight goes the distance. Man, if I had been on that one, I would have been sweating it because Romanov lasted and he was sticking in the fight. Sure, the over hits, but I also was leaning towards looking at Imavov, a live bet. That's sort of where it landed as far as the play was. But if you got on the minus 190 over, good on you. If you did hit that fight goes the distance based on the suggestion, good on you. That was the first fight, and then let's talk about the other successes. Nick, if you want to sort of jump in on the successes, and I'll tail in on.
Yeah, well, just to tail off something you said too, though, like whenever we put out these live bet situations, like that's up to your discretion on when to jump in, because live betting is a very successful way to do it. Like, for example, with that Guram fight, I hit Brenner at plus 500, plus 175, and plus 400 three different times throughout that fight, because that fight just kept going. The plus 175 is the only one he probably didn't get value on, but he got that third round KO. So whenever it comes to live betting, it's as long as you're watching it, you saw in that Romanov fight where the tide wasn't really turning. Like Imavov wasn't, Bogoy wasn't.
There was no value in the live. There was no point in jumping on it. But
no.
In the Brenner one, you're completely right, because Guram just couldn't seem to get him out of there. He was hitting him with short elbows. He was doing multiple things, and Brenner just a dog. That was a sharp play on your part. I was not on the Guram side big. We had put out a parlay. I put out a parlay minus 115, I think, with Carol Hosa, which is a sweat and a half. That one was.
Yeah.
That was already dead, obviously, at minus 115 because Guram was out of it in that third round. Brenner he just sticks in it, man. He's a guy that's gonna, he's gonna get clipped and caught and knocked out by multiple guys, but he stays in the fight. He is hittable, but if he outlasts you, then he's a third round bet a lot. Like that's a great live dog to have. So yeah, good play on that one. What were some of the other plays that you were looking at on the card that we did well on? I think let's talk about the dog. Both you and Billy were heavy on the dog. And talk about that one. That was a sharp play as well too.
Yeah, whenever it came to Newsrolton, always gonna butcher these guys' fucking names.
But
yeah, dude, that was just an experience thing, right? Like I knew a lot of people on other shows, and like some other cappers were saying it was an experience thing, it was just like he's been fighting like tomato cans and stuff like that, but I'm like, man, when you got 30 plus, almost 40 pro fights, and you're facing a guy he may be 10-0, but his win condition is in the first round. Like he got punched once and he dropped like a sack of potato. So I think it was just experience all day in that one. And like the tape, honestly, I thought he was going to win by submission. Like I thought that he was just going to focus on grappling, but I took the inside the distance because I still got good plus money on it. So I think I got plus 175 because regardless, that fight wasn't going 15 minutes. So, but that's another thing too, man. Whenever you bet these things, you can't get greedy and just go for the submission over the KO, The inside the distance props are always the way to go because it tends to not go in your favor.
Speaking of going for submission over the KO, let's talk about it. Joe Anderson Brito, I just felt like he was going to come in. He just pissed off, came in first round, and just what's the point in playing on the ground with Wilson? Although he probably does have the advantage because really he's probably going to land some top some top strikes from above and then catch maybe a rear naked choke or something. And I know that's sort of the way you were thinking. He was going to land some shots and then catch him on a club and sub or catch him on an advantageous situation where he turns and gives his back. I mean, I think it was more the expected play, but at the same time, still a sharp play. A lot of the time, you're going to see Burrito do this. I just looking at Wilson, I just felt like maybe a KO was the way he was going to want to finish it. And if I had known what his post-fight speech was going to be about, I would have definitely went with the KO all day long. He wants to make a point. Man's pissed off for some reason, but I'm with it.
Yeah, and like our last sharp play, man, was Lipsky. And you can say whatever you want. I understand, like, for some people, they didn't necessarily agree with the decisions, but Gatto was a minus 250 favorite. And at no point in that fight did she ever come close to reaching the value what that line suggests. So, regardless of which way you spin that fight, I scored 2 rounds for Lipsky. I can understand how you can score 2 rounds for Gatto, but it was a very close fight.
And that
So,
would have been your sharp play, right? So you were sort of on the Lipsky side of things.
yeah.
But really it's that was a lot closer fight than it was supposed to be. I think that the Gatto side, I'm glad I didn't really look at Gatto at all as a play. I was looking at the under, I missed on that. I was sort of okay with that. I felt like, you know, with women's MMA history, and yes, I get it. It likely could go over, but I felt like there was value there. I actually have a play for you this week that you're going to be very, very happy about, because I'm going to lean into your plays on the overs. But just to quickly, I'm just going to recap quickly. So Carol Hossa was more of a sweat than it should have been. I thought she would have actually been able to get some takedowns in this fight, and actually looked to get some takedowns in this fight. Yano Santos came in looking like she was on everything and anything, just jacked up to the tilts. Maybe she just you know, wanted to, I don't know, put in some extra work off getting rid of that baby weight and came in as a monster. Or maybe she found some extra leftovers in the house. I don't know. I'm not saying, but she definitely looked like a monster. She was stronger, bigger. Takedowns were not coming. I knew that right away, and I was just sweating that fucking money line all the way to the bank. But it hit, and I'll take it. I'll walk away with it at minus 156. I'm happy. If anybody wants to criticize the pick over that, sure, I get it. Over minus 160, feeling chalky on it, I'm fine. But hit it at minus 156, and that play was put out on Sunday. So the Sunday before the fight. It's like out quite early. Next fight we look at, we had talked about Joe Anderson Brito. Quickly, Bernat, I wasn't that I was fully fading you, but I was looking at Kevin Lee as potentially coming back and doing something. I am a Bernat believer. He does. I sort of criticize his striking in open field, and I think that he will get caught if he stays in open field. But man, that guy is fucking killer. He has a killer instinct, something you can't like, either you have it or you don't. I don't know if you develop that. I think you're either a killer or you're not, and he's a killer. So he's a guy you back. Smart play on your end. I know that Billy and I weren't necessarily heavy on the Lee as a dog, but it was more just trying to get a round out of him. That round did not come. That was a play on my part. You were on, we're not. Smart play. Take it away.
Yeah, I never thought Kevin Lee was that good, man. Like, I've just never been one of the believers in him. Most of the fights he wins, he tends to get his ass kicked, and he can pull something out by his opponents gassing out. So it's just, he's never been somebody I've been super high on. But as I said, we on this card, man, there's a lot of underdogs that won. Not a lot that were surprising, in my opinion. Like the ones that I thought, like Morales, like I thought he
Why
would win.
couldn't we have sniffed out Benoit Saint Denis? Because here's the thing, he is a dog. I thought for some reason Ismail Bonfim would present more of an issue with the scrambles.
It was
He did
recency
not.
bias, man. It was honestly
It
right
was,
away
man.
whenever he started landing those body kicks and Bonfim just started like putting his hands up like he didn't give a shit. I was like, the second you start showboating like that, you give a shit. I was like, this is gonna. And I had Bonfim, man. He's the
100%. He
last
was
like,
fully swaying
yeah.
in Denis' favor. And I think the problem with Denis is this. I think when you look at Denis, you think of his Zaleski fight. I think that when you think of Denis, you think of him just getting beat up so bad that you wanted to call like into the UFC themselves and say, stop the fucking fight. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And the referee kept going because he had the over ticket. The referee kept going because he had, you know, Denis as a ticket, whatever the fuck it might have been. Someone was real sneaky about that fight. But regardless, that Zaleski fight sort of, I think, has tainted Denis as this guy who gets beaten up. But every time we see him in there, he gets better and better. He can take a shot. We know it. He hasn't really in his past couple. He can land and throw with the best of them. And at the top of it, his grappling's solid, man. And he's a killer again, another killer. So, man, I just think it was a huge miss spot. Anybody that was sharp on that, not just throwing it out there because it was a dog, good on him. Because I think that recency bias, as far as the side of Bonfim being so good, and then Denis, that vividness bias story of him just getting his ass kicked was a problem. So just quickly, Michael Morales, what a monster that kid is. Really love watching him fight. I know Griffin sort of pushed that to decision, but good on him. Grant Dawson, that was my early dog of the week. Put it out as my final one of my final plays is a value dog at plus 120. Man, I should have went with my gut instinct. I tell you, I put those plays out more for myself to see where my gut instinct is initially. I thought Dawson was gonna be able to take him down multiple times, and it was gonna be a lot greasier than a lot of people thought. I thought there was value all over the place in that fight. And what could tell you too is the spread. The spread was set up minus 3.5 for Dawson. Yeah, so it was on the flip side of things. So you weren't gonna get that value on it. That told you that this fight was a lot closer than a lot of people were saying.
Dawson, Grant Dawson though is I don't think his stock really grows in this fight. Not to say it was a bad fight, but like it was literally 15 minutes of a jiu-jitsu match where he couldn't get a finish. Like for the whole 7 seconds is on the feet, Demir hit him like 3 times, and then Demir was of course on his ass, and then he was in a body triangle. So
I'll take the plus 120, right?
Well, and that's the thing from a gambling perspective, that's what we want, right? Because we don't care about that. The last thing you want is a guy that you put $100 on getting into a slugfest. That is not what you want to see. So
No.
from a gambling
he was like
perspective,
minus 105 to minus 115 going into the fight at the close. So I mean, Dawson at plus 120 was good. Even the Hossa line moved quite a bit, and I felt confident about at least the early value on it. But yeah, man, I think that's something we need to make sure we're doing. I'm going to talk to Billy about too, and just getting, just people need to tune into the podcast. People sell packages, and I'm going to start pushing even Billy's packages more. But if you tune into the podcast early, you're going to get value on lines. We're a nobody podcast still, but for those that are listening, if you're even tailing on some of this shit, you're winning. It's a win, man. So, my thoughts, anyways. Sean Strickland, too much pressure. I know that you were looking at Abus. I didn't even really look into this fight, and I probably should have, because I mean, the average fight time was the biggest thing. The average fight time for Strickland versus Abus, and I know that he is a badass and gets guys out of there, but Strickland typically doesn't get taken out of there, and he just applies pressure. And there's a lot of value on that line, I think, missed by a lot of people, including myself.
yeah, to be honest, it wasn't something I honestly had too much value on. Like I was on the boot side, but it's just because I like Strickland is hittable, but the guy came in with absolutely zero cardio. So
And once you get hit and someone's walking you down and you're back foot, the pressure is only going to get to you, right?
hey, and speaking of people like this, Paulo Costa's fighting Ikram in a couple weeks, and Paulo Costa's a plus 100. Paulo Costa's battle tested, fighting a guy, the exact same thing, probably getting a lot of hype because of that name there. I haven't done my research too much into that. I don't know too much about Ikram other than the fact that he murdered Phil Hawes. But most people murder Phil Hawes, so that's nothing to write home about. And we know Paulo Costa. You think of that Yoel Romero fight. I don't think Ikram's going to be the one to put his ass to sleep. So if that plus 100 sticks around, some value there.
Okay, that's a good way to finish up our sort of recap, and let's jump right into UFC 290. There is a whole bunch of takes that we can look at on this one. As I said, there's already been a line that I put out, and I think that you're on the same side of it as well too. I think a lot of people are going to be on the same side of it. But let's just jump in. Where do you want to start? You can sort of throw your line out there. If you want to even throw out the dog, that's cool too, and we'll dig into it.
Yeah, so here's the thing with this card, and this is what you and I discussed prior to coming on here is there's a lot of really easy spots. Like we can look at fighters like Robert Whitaker, Jalen Turner, like the spots that are kind of obvious. So the ones I'm going to highlight may not be the ones that are going to be necessarily the most obvious ones, but I'm going to go with Alonzo Menifield in this fight, man. Like I think that if you watch that first fight, he definitely blew his load in the first. That's what caused this fight to go to a draw. But in no world would any ref ever let that fight go the way it did. Like that fight should have been stopped in the first. And I think Alonzo Menifield knows
knockdowns, that. Right? You got 2 knockdowns in that fight,
at least 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think it was at least 2 knockdowns in that fight, and like he had landed quite a bit on him.
Yeah, so and I'm seeing a line right now. You can get Menifield KO plus 165. And that's honestly what I'm going to be hitting. I'm hoping to get a little bit more value on that line, but I'm not really surprised by where it's at. I just think that he'll probably be a little more calculated knowing what happened in the first fight. He's not going to come in here and necessarily go as crazy as he did to prevent the situation he had before. But if he didn't gas out after that first, it was him all day. Like Crew wasn't in that fight. And Crew couldn't even finish him after he was pretty much completely gassed. So I like Alonzo Menifield a lot, man. I think the wrestling will be on his side if he needs to use it. And the power and the strength is just going to be there all day.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Crew actually potentially could get his back at some point, but I just think that early, I think this time Benefield touches him and he goes to sleep. I think the fight gets stopped. This was almost a line that I played myself. Looking at Benefield KO, even potentially money line depending on how. And I was going back and forth on it. I watched the tape. I remember I was on the Crute side of it. I think I was more not wanting to jump Benefield on the Benefield side of it just for the fact that I wanted to make sure I wasn't fading myself from before. But if you're on the side of Benefield, we'll definitely have to put that out as a Benefield play and a Benefield's maybe KO as a prop. I'm into it, man. Okay, I'll bring my next spot to the table. And actually, it is, where are we? Yeah, it's the next fight up. So if we look at the next fight up, we have me going to the well again with women's MMA. We have Yasmin Uruguay against Denise Gomes. I think a lot of people are expecting this to go to fall inside the distance. I think that with Gomes' finishing ability, and Yasmin's also there's potential for it to finish inside the distance, but I don't know. I think that maybe I'm fading myself from last week. You know, I was on the inside the distance play on a fight where two women should go in and there's a car wreck and should finish one another. Someone should finish somebody and went to a greasy split decision that most people have bad taste in their mouths with. With this one though, I just think that both girls are pretty durable. I think that if you look at Uruguay, I just think she's gonna be able to stay on the outside, land some shots on Gomes, stay away from the power on Gomes. But I know she has her power and finishing ability as well too. But I just think these girls are going to stalemate each other a little bit. I think it's going to creep over to the over. I like the over at over 2.5 at -145. It could get better later in the week because I think a lot of people are actually going to expect this fight to finish inside the distance, and I will be all over the line on the over, man. So you got me on a women's MMA over. Perhaps it's not the one that everybody thinks you should be on, but I think that's why I see value in it. I think that historically you're going to see, you know, lighter weight women get in the ring, or even lighter weight men get in the ring and are in the cage, and they're going to go to decision. And in this one, I just see it. I think that there's going to be a striking battle, maybe a couple of takedowns mixed in, but ultimately no one's going to land that clean flush shot because both girls are going to be able to work their game at points and respect each other a little bit more. So yeah, man, I think the over on this one, -145. I know that's already a play for you at -145 for an over, but what do you think? You're going to parlay that one up this week?
Yeah, no, honestly, I have to agree, man. I agree that like a lot of people are looking at the under, but I think this fight's gonna be closer than the line suggests. Both girls are very, very tough. And Yasmin Uruguay, she's very good, but she's sitting at like a -275 favorite. Doesn't have a lot of experience in the UFC. Neither does Gomez for that matter. But it's just Gomez is tough, man. And I agree with you. I think this is going to be a pretty heavily contested striking affair. I think Yasmin probably wins the majority of the exchanges and the wrestling exchanges. I definitely think she probably looks more dominant in this fight. That's something I'm confident in. But I don't necessarily see a finish, though. I just think Gomez will be tough enough to stand there and make her way through the end and even have her own moments in herself. And even then, if Yasmin ends up gassing out or tries to go for the finish too hard, because she is known for that, she's a very ruthless girl that, Gomez could end up winning, the third round because Yasmin just kind of went way too hard on it.
And I mean, with that, you could, as you're watching it, go on instinct. And if you sort of see that the tide is turning, then get ready on a live bet. You're going to either get more value depending on what's going on in the fight and where the line is at on what round, or you're going to get a little bit of drop in value in the dog, but still get plus money on the dog in a live scenario. But for me, I like the over. I like the -145. Once I saw that number, I was okay with it. Anything over the -1, like even it's right at the line for me. Yeah, over -150, and then I'm starting to look at something different. But I like that line. I like the Uruguay Gomes over 2.5 -145. Your next play.
I'm gonna go with Victor in this next spot, man. It's definitely a chalky part, but as I said, it is what it is. This is this type of card. His KO prop right now sitting really chalked, -160, but I don't hate it, man. Like with Marcin Pragnow literally walks in with his hands down and is there to be hit. And Victor hits so hard. He's coming in, man, 8-0 or whatever, all KOs. And I don't think Marcin Pragnow, like there's a lot of these fights where I worry about the durability of other guys, but Marcin Pragnow has never shown me anything that would make me worried in the spot that he actually will have like the willingness to gas out Victor. I think Victor's going to be the bigger, stronger dude. He's going to come in here, land bombs, and I'd be very surprised if this fight got out of the first round.
I love that you went with that one because another one that I think a lot of people are looking at Petrino potentially inside the distance, and I love that you're looking at that line because it sort of just reaffirms how I'm thinking, and we're on the same page. And I'm actually okay with that this week. If we maybe have one where we argue on that's cool, but I'm with you on that. I think any kind of Petrino inside the distance or Petrino under SGP with Petrino in it, I'm sort of with finding value on. If we can't find value on the KO, let's find a more chalkier value in the fact that we'll get more time, maybe an under, like a Petrino and an under, and see if that -170 there's a better way to attack it. But I'm with you on him finishing. I think he finishes early, and I think that he's going to be a problem for quite a few people. But long term, I just don't. He's going to be someone that we fade in the future. That's for sure.
Yeah, Mercy Pragno just ain't the guy. Like he's
Yeah, no,
16-6. Like his record in the UFC is kind of abysmal. Like he's just one of these guys, man, that like he's there to get beat up. 67% of his losses come from KO. And even if you look back, like the guy lost to Philip Lins. Like his last win was over William Knight, where William Knight literally came in and said he had like 5 family members die in like the week leading up to that fight, or like in 2 weeks leading up to it, something obscene. And he just was not in that fight at all. So, and he beat Ike Villanueva, which nobody cares about because Ike is just terrible.
I'm with you on that. So my next play is I think that the levels are just so staggering. There's such a difference in these fighters. I think somebody is, I think Dricus is just, he's made it this far. It's great for him. I don't even know how he got out of the last fight. And in this one, I just think that Whittaker's one of the best fighters in the world, in my opinion. I think that when you look at a mixed martial artist, a guy who can threaten you with everything, I think that he is one of the top to be able to do that. The guy can mix in his footwork so beautifully with his strikes, set you up on a third level chess, and then catch you with combinations. He's multiple strike combinations consistently. He's a volume getter. He's a guy that will take you down. And I know that he's run into, Israel Adesanya, but he has a fucking chip on his shoulder too. He wants to make a statement. He wants to get that shot again. And I don't see him. It's a little bit narrative mixed with levels. But for me, I just see Whittaker like mollywopping this mother. I shouldn't even say, because I shouldn't say talk shit about Dricus. I'm trying to step away from talking shit about fighters because one day I'm going to get punched in the face when I'm at an event. But I think that it's just the level is going to be there, and I think the value is there. Right now, you can get Whittaker plus 115. That won't be there inside the distance. Whittaker inside the distance. I know some people are thinking this may go the distance because Dricus is pretty durable. I don't even know if he's ever been finished, but it's happening here. I think he's going to get finished whether he's taken down and submitted or TKO on the ground. It's happening. So I'll go with Whittaker in this one. Plus 115. I think there's value in that line. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't agree more, man. The main things I'm looking at in this fight, and I'm sure you'll hear this all over the place this week, is the round 2 and the round 3. Because Dricus is going to be live until he's not. The first round will probably be close. Not necessarily in the fact that he's going to look good. He's just going to look better than the line suggests. But then all of his fights, his cardio is going to completely fall off a hill. We saw that Derek Brunson fight, and both those guys were absolutely gassed, man. They had nothing left to give. And that's most of his fights. I'm not a big DDP fan. I never have been. I bet Brunson against him in this spot. And the first round looked really good, like most fights with Derek Brunson. I think he tries to come out here really hard, and I think that as the fight gets extended, he just gets tired. And, he throws a lot of wild winging shots. Like Robert Whittaker, man, he's such a technical striker. And then even then,
footwork, man, his footwork is just too good. Yeah, and I think that's a huge difference in this fight.
And that counter is going to be there all day. And that's the thing. As he gets more tired, his striking will get more sloppy, and it's sloppy to begin with. And that counter is going to catch DDP at some point and put him out. So I agree, man. I like the round 2, round 3, though.
Round 2, round 3 coming out. But imagine if for some reason you don't get the value that you want on those lines for whatever reason, and then you could have got plus 115 earlier in the week, and you lose that as an inside the distance play for here's the I sort of saw in my head. I'm thinking of how this would play out, and I could see Dricus sort of gassing a bit, mouth open, hands starting to fall in that end of the second, going into the third round. So I'm with you on those as the rounds and the props, but I just think that plus you get plus money on it, it's a great way to play Whitaker. I think he finishes this one for sure. So that would be my second official play that I'm bringing to the table. We're sort of throwing out some ideas, but my official plays are Uruguay, Gomes over 2.5, and the Whitaker inside the distance. Will be the two plays for me so far. And I like your plays as well. You got Menafield, at a potential money line, and then also looking at a KO prop. And then also you got Petrino as well, and looking at a way to have him inside the distance too. So
The next play, man, I'm going with Robbie Lawler. I think in his last fight, man, like he did not necessarily take it seriously. Man, he's been questioning retirement for a long time. And like when we see Robbie Lawler show up, his durability is a lot better than that fight suggested. I see this line being really wide. He's sitting at like a plus 220 or something like that right now. And I think this fight's gonna be close. Nico Price is super hittable. He's not a guy that likes getting hit. And whenever he doesn't do well with pressure, you know, he needs to be the one leading the dance. And I think Robbie Lawler is going to take this fight very seriously. Like he's already announced his retirement. And for most people, I would sense that as a red flag. But with Robbie Lawler, man, like we've been watching this guy since 2003. Like he's been in the game forever, you know, and he has that passion. He has that thrive. He loves to fight. And
he's
I
going to
think
want to go out like Paul Daly.
yeah, exactly. I think he's going to take this fight very seriously. And I think he's going to come out here to put a beating on Nico Price. And I think this may be the best we've ever seen Robbie Lawler. And he's going to fade off into the sunset and be happy with his career because he's a super genuine, nice dude.
Off into bare knuckle fighting. What are we talking about?
I fucking hope not. I don't.
You know that's coming, man. Come on.
I don't think so. I think Robbie Lawler is just like he's 41 years old, man. You know what? It's usually the age for bare knuckle
a
boxers.
year from now, he'll be itching, and there'll be $1 million contract on his table. I can't see him not getting into bare knuckle. It's almost like it's built for him. But I would like him not. He's been in too many wars in the UFC itself. Like, you know, like he looks like he's been fighting in bare knuckle for the past certain amount of years of the wars he's been. So I mean, look behind your damn head. Yeah, okay. I could see value at plus 220. I mean, if it creeps a little bit higher, I may even tail you on that one. I'm gonna come in with my dog of the weekend. I know it's something that a lot of people are looking at, but I like Pantoja at plus 170. And here's the tough thing. If you're looking at this fight and you want to try to break it down, I mean, good fucking luck. That's actually how I felt with this. And I look, Brandon Moreno has the one thing that I love to see. He's got momentum and he's got growth in each camp. His fight IQ is there, and he looked absolutely amazing in his last fight. I think this is such a close fight, and I think getting Pantoja anywhere north of plus 150, I'm with. So give me Pantoja at plus 170. If the line moves even more favorable, then we'll look at it again. But I just think it's a play. I think it's probably going to sit around this line, man. If it hasn't moved yet, I don't think it's going to move unless you see big money come in just pre-fight. And that could happen. You could see big money come in one way or the other. But man, I'm with Pantoja on this one. I just think on the ground, he's going to actually be able to get some control time, which most people don't on Moreno. I think that although they will stalemate and they'll end up on the feet predominantly, I just think that there's going to be one guy that gets a little bit of control time. That's going to be Pantoja. And then on the feet, it's going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, give me Pantoja at plus 170, anywhere north of plus 150, and I'm into it, man. So Pantoja is a play.
Same way, man. Like Pantoja has beat Brandon Moreno twice, and that's something that has to be considered. Like this isn't just a one-off thing. Like he came in here, he rear naked choked him on the Ultimate Fighter, and then on top of that, they fought again, and he won a unanimous decision against him. And you can say like, oh, like well, Brandon Moreno's gone better. It's like he has, but so has Pantoja, and Pantoja to me is a more complete mixed martial artist. Brandon Moreno wins fights by durability. And whenever we say things like that, it means he's great at taking a punch. That's the reality of it. Durability is not a compliment to a fighter, regardless which way you put it. It just means you're great at getting your ass kicked. And he's in there, man. He's in there for the dog fights. But he's fought Davis and Figueiredo, 4 times now?
Yeah, and that's another way it's hard to cap him, right? Because it's like, how do you cap him? He's been focusing on one guy with like different strategies for one guy. So like strategy is a huge thing too. And I think Pantoja is just a fucking hell of a person to have strategy.
Davidson's so focused on moving up. That weight cut's been so brutal on him for so long. Like he's not a young fighter, and for somebody his size to be trying to make 125, like there's so many variables that go into that. Where Pantoja has just been serious at what he's doing. I say he has a lot of the loss to Askar. But other than that, man, like he's looked really good over the last couple of years. So I'm with you, man. I think he actually gets a sub in this spot. I think that he'll be able to take Moreno's back. Obviously, we're chasing at that point. I think there's great value on the money line, and I probably wouldn't exceed it too much past that. But I think he finishes Brandon Moreno on the spot, man.
Yeah, I don't know if I can go that far because I mean, like I said, I just think that you just make me feel better about my pick, obviously, right? Because you're really thinking that Pantoja does have the edge. I think that although they have fought before, I think it's going to be a different fight. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think that Moreno now I'm playing devil's advocate, of course. I think Moreno has come a long way, but I think still, man, even if I'm looking at it just split down the middle, or we're looking at it, the way Nick's saying Pantoja is more the lean. Plus 170 for a guy who's won their last two fights, and a guy who's the challenger, who's hungry, who's high level, who's actually another killer as well too, but who can also accrue top control and just sort of ride you out, attack submissions, land some elbows. I like Pantoja in this one as well too. So give me the plus money on the dog, and hopefully it gets better, man. And I think it maybe could. You may get some casuals come in here later in the week. I don't know if they'll put enough money down on it, but who knows? With apps growing and money coming from everywhere at this time, you may get more money in on Moreno as well too. So I'm with it.
Yeah. A sneaky play I do want to post out quickly that I think probably won't get much attention this week is the plus 5.5 on your Rodriguez. I think the line's wide, man. Like, I'm not going out there saying Yair is going to win, but I think with the great improvements that he's made in the striking, which has already been fantastic, mixed in with the fact that he's been working hard on his jiu-jitsu and his wrestling, I think he's very live to win a round or two in this fight. I
You could
don't
take
think
like round two or round three once he gets.
Yeah, or
Oh
even that
yeah,
first
I get
round,
to
man,
it.
he starts so quick, and Volk isn't always the quickest starter. And if he comes out there, starts landing those calf kicks, pumping that jab, he's the bigger fighter in this fight. Like, I think he definitely probably steals, one of the first 3 rounds at least. Once again, I can't really go there and say he wins because I don't think he does, but I think the line's super wide. And I think you'll probably get, maybe plus 150, maybe even plus 200, just given the fact that, Volk's sitting at like a minus 450 right now. So,
Man, I watched Daniel Cormier breaking down Volk and how he sets up his strikes and sets up like he just baits you on a third level chess game too. Yeah, I just although everybody's like looking at maybe Yair as I know that's not what you're saying. You're looking at that one round. There's guys that are even looking at him as the dog. I just think they're going to be he's going to be chasing Volk, trying to catch him and just not find him. But definitely think, you know what, you're actually even live on that first round. I think that first round really is likely where he comes out and just goes full bore. But even if he comes out reserved, I still think he can sneak out at round two or round three, just with edging with a couple more moments. Maybe he does clip Volkanovski with a couple, and then maybe gets a little bit more. I don't know. He's not going to get any control time on the cage. He's going to want to veer off that cage and stay away from it as much as possible. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Another play to look at, another one to look at, because I just think it's like death and taxes. Bo Nickel by submission in this fight, especially, I think is a play, but minus 200, not for me. Too chalky for me. Minus 175, Bo Nickel round one. So to win by any condition in round one is maybe something you want to put together, maybe in a small ass parlay, depending on what you degenerates are doing out there. But if we're looking at minus 200 for the sub and a minus 175 for round one, I'm interested to see what round one sub is. I think that's just a clip. He's been doing that nonstop, subbing guys in the first round. I think that's the way to play this fight. Trishan Gore it was his last fight that he got the submission victory, right? On Van Camp.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean that standing guillotine where in a fight where the tide was looking like it was starting to turn against him and he grabs up that neck and uses all that muscle. But I think that muscle is not going to do anything for him in this fight. I think he's going to get either drowned in the first round, if not the second, if he's lucky. And I'm not a Gore backer, never have been. And he's going against the monster, the phenom, and Bo Nickel. So sub first round, if it has value, it'll likely be a play. And it might be one of those like Bo Nickel sub first round mixed with something else to give it some value for me or whatever it'll be by fight time. But I think that's an extra line to throw out there for you to look at when it comes out.
Yeah, I love him, man. Like, I think that's one of the easier plays on this card, man. And I think it's, where you take these big, heavy favorites and you actually get a decent value on it and something that's worth a parlay piece and or just a single bet in itself.
And then I know a lot of people are on Jalen Turner this week, and I'm a huge Jalen Turner backer, and I think that you could see a sub in this fight. I think you could see multiple things in this fight. But I chased Jalen Turner in the last fight, and I sweat like a son of a bitch in that fight. So for me, I'm just that fight, I think the value's out of it at this point. What's the line currently sitting at right now?
Minus 350. It's
It's too,
something.
everybody was on it like last week. Everybody was putting out their parlays for the next 2 fights coming up. I mean, I know it was Gamrot that he fought and he loses that split decision, but I mean, it made me sweat a lot. And I think that he could have landed, I don't know. I can say what I think could have happened, but I mean, you don't know what's happening inside the cage. I don't know what happened in that fight. I mean, I know that Gamrot is a bad man, but I think that just the finishing ability of Turner is there. I think he's just a fucking killer. He snatches up necks. He's got that length, and he's able to just land big shots as well too. But yeah, I think that could be a potential. I don't know, man. Dan Hooker, do you think he's just a Twitter warrior at this point? I love Dan Hooker, but
Yeah, the thing with Dan Hooker, man, he's always going to be good in fights where it's going to be a war. It's just I don't think Jalen Turner is the type of guy that's going to give it to him. Jalen Turner, if Dan Hooker decides to try to shoot and take him down, Jalen Turner's going to be live to submit him. And it's tough, man. Like, I think Dan Hooker's at a weird place in his career, and I just don't really know where he goes from here.
yeah, I think Turner could snatch up a neck for sure. Just something I'm going to sort of stay off. I don't know what it is about the fight. It just gives me bad vibes. But here's a little parlay to throw out there right now. Bo Nickel round 1, Jack Della Maddalena round 1. Call it a day.
The thing with Jack Della's opponent, man, is he's fought absolute cans, but he's also an absolute stud of a wrestler. So it would depend on the line, man. Like, the dude's undefeated, never been finished, LFA champ right now. Like, I don't actually think he's that bad of a fighter. And maybe it's because I don't know if you saw the video that I posted.
Cage, yeah. Does nothing for me. The malfunction of a fucking cage does nothing for me. I don't know. Everybody's on it, and I get that he speared him into it, but it's like a malfunction of a cage. Like, if I was betting on the person who built that cage, then I'd fade them. That's what I do. Everybody's talking about this week.
What's Jack gonna do if he gets taken down quick, though?
No, I get it. That's more value. You talking about him being the wrestler, and you talking to him about sort of the unknown, because he is a young, muscular, up and coming guy who's got some strength, and he's a strong wrestler. So I get that side of it, but that cage malfunction. I mean, unless we're betting on the guy that built it,
the shitty lock.
Yeah, the shitty. Oh wow, yeah. But yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe Jack. We'll see where the line's at, but maybe we don't parlay that up because the unknown. But I just think that Jack is a killer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of violence on this card, man. Like, over unders are probably going to be your best bet on this card, and yeah, I don't see this card having that many live dogs though. Like, I think the thing with these pay-per-views is they're not like the fight night cards that we get where they're like a lot of unpredictable things. Like, this card will probably be pretty straightforward.
Okay, so to recap, I can't talk today. Okay, so to recap the lines, let's just go through them quickly. So my first play that I was looking at was Pantoja as the dog. That's what I'm going to lean first at plus 170. I think that Pantoja, I mean, I don't know, man. Him at plus money, anything over plus 150 is a play. Next, we look at Uruguay and Gomes. I just think that's going to go over 2.5 at minus 145 right now. I should get this up immediately, and we'll have that line out exactly as is. And then for me, Whitaker inside the distance at plus 115, I just think is the play all day. I think there's levels in this, and the levels are there. And then if you want to just recap yours very quickly.
Yeah, so I'm going with Alonzo Menifield plus 100. Alonzo Menifield inside the distance at plus 165 by KO.
Like it.
Going Victor. Money lines minus 275, a little chalky for me. I'm looking at the round 1 prop, not out there yet, but the KO prop minus 160. Once again, chalky, but at the end of the day, that's the win condition here. And then I'm going at Robbie Lawler plus 220. Once again, like, I can say here and say I'm going with Robert Whitaker. I'm going with Jalen Turner. These are very obvious spots. I don't need you to tell, you don't need me to tell you to bet these spots because these are obvious. These are the external spots that I see where I see value where you can make money on them. On a chalky card like this, as I said, I can't come out here and be like, bet. I like the plus 115 on Whitaker though, man. I said the round 2, round 3 sprinkle, like, that's value. So
yeah, no, I didn't take it away. I understand. There's no value in the chalk on Whitaker, and Whitaker we know is going to win the fight. I just feel like sometimes you get in trouble for chasing that inside the distance. I just think that that's going to hit. I think there's levels, and I think, you know, even your breakdown on it, Duplessis is out. So, but yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Finding some angles on this is definitely the way to go. I think that, you know, looking at Lawler potentially, he is that kind of guy that would go out in a proper retirement fight versus Like he's going to go out on a shield versus a guy who sort of just fades off into existence. So definitely, I see that 100%. What was your other play? That was everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we were looking at a potential of Bo Nickel first round submission, depending on where the value line is on that. Also, you were looking at Rodriguez as potentially as the plus 5.5. Are a lot of those lines out now? Can you see some of those lines right now?
No, unfortunately, like
I
that's
should have
like
made it. Yeah.
yeah, it'd be like Wednesday by the time we get them.
And where do you think if we were to look at some of these actually, if you do get plus on the dog, because sometimes they'll flip the line on you and then you're not going to get any value on it. But if you were to look at someone that might snag around, where do you think it might be?
For one of like the heavier dogs.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like potentially, here's the thing, like it's probably gonna be, maybe Dan Hooker. I think out of Simon and Tyra, I think one of them shits the bed. Like I've been having that feeling all week. Eddie Chavez, not a bad fighter, man. The guy's a BJJ black belt, great wrestler. I think he's got potential to, especially considering this fight's at a catch weight. I think that line's going to be greasy. Same thing with Terrence Mitchell. Terrence Mitchell is another one of these guys, man, that can come out here. He's very unknown, and I think he has potential too. So I
Yeah,
think
the line is really chalky now at this point. I mean, I did put out like a 3-piece parlay with Uruguay, Saman, and Whitaker. It ended up in like a minus, what was it, minus 105 or whatever it might have been. But that's fine, and even that's still way more chalk for someone like Saman in this situation. I just the Alaska Fight League, the Alaska Pro Fight League, and then predominantly Canny. But at the same time, I'm sort of that parlay was something put out early, and I'm now leaning at maybe in this fight, you want to look at Saman live. I think that first round could be really volatile, but he's pretty durable, but does get hit though. So I mean, he could get clipped in that first round and shit all over everybody's parlays and whatnot. But I think after that first round, he's live because we haven't really seen his opponent go past that first round. Really, he's submitting guys in the first round, a lot of rear naked chokes, which are as a result of him dropping guys. But I mean, he does get KO'd in that Ultimate Fighter season against Kai Kara France, and that sort of speaks to me a little bit. Gets knocked out 30 seconds in that first round. I don't know what that's all about and why he got maybe just Kai Kara France hits like a fucking truck. That's what that's about. But I mean, the same thing. So I mean, that live bet I think is there. I'm glad you addressed that because I actually wanted to bring that one up and I forgot to. So any other spots that you could see on the card? Because I think we've locked in a lot. There's not too much left on the table as far as when the lines come out because we've got most of them locked in already, which is good.
No, man, like I'm good. The other fights I don't really got much interest in touching. As I said, it's a chalky card. I think most of the favorites win. I think it's set up that way. International Fight Week's always been set up that way. They bring you the best talent and put them against competition that is not, I don't want to say is mediocre, but they set them up to win because it's that style of fight card. Like they want their stars to shine. It's the UFC's moment, January 8th. They got trade shows all week. Like, you know what I mean? They got fighters everywhere. Like they want their big stars to shine bright. So I think it's a parlay favorable card. And I think most favorites are probably going to ride. But there's going to be that one dude that's going to fuck your shit. So don't go betting all these minus 900 favorites.
Yeah, I'm not about I can't do it. Even that first fight may scream a potential for a plus 3.5, depending on where those lines are as well too. But we'll leave that one alone. That might be a play I look at later in the week because I was looking at that. I did tape that one pretty heavily actually. So and that's an interesting one. Tape it, aka watch fighting. That's my wife said that to me the other day. She said, "Oh, you were taping, so you're watching fighting." It's from the commercial when the guy's like, whatever app it is, he's like, "Yeah, I was watching, I was taping, I was watching tape," and the girl's like, "So you were watching baseball?" Got it. Bunch of wannabe cappers, but I think the wannabe cappers are doing pretty fucking good because if you listen to the podcast the past couple of weeks, you probably cash at some point. Whether you're fading me, backing Nick, backing Billy, whatever which way we've been going. I've been gaining momentum the past 3 weeks and fucking crushed last week. You crushed as well too. And as a podcast, if you listen to the full podcast all the way through, all the leans, looks, and plays that we put out, almost everything hit. So, I mean, kick rocks if you're fading, but thank you for the subscriptions and thank you for the likes and the viewership. But man, I hope that you guys are cashing. I hope that the handful of you that are out there and Donttap land, the handful of you that are out there, I hope that you are cashing on this one. So no Billy this week, but I think that we got some spots, man. So I'll be putting out all
Sure,
the plays.
brother.
I'll put out your plays as well too, and I'll put together a graphic for both. For Nick Eagle-Eye, I'm Callum McGregor. Tune into the Donttap podcast.
I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Ruffian Style. Tune into the
Donttap
Donttap podcast.
Donttap
podcast.
Ron Jones.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
To me, the Lions are the number one rankings out there. Those guys are the ones who really do their homework.
Man, that's why I'm saying the rankings are bullshit.
from Canada.
Got a really high fight IQ.
But this fight, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin.
Levels to the shit.
So many high level guys.
So like the line is crazy.
Oh, there we go. Oh, no, we're good. See, he's a pro.